So I have two bikes, both Ducatis. What we're on right now is my 1199 Panigale. It's a 2012. And then my other bike is a 2009 1198. In all performance metrics, the 1199 is a better motorcycle. But as far as just going out for a cruise and enjoying it, the 1198 in my opinion is much better. So this was a common problem people had with the 1199, is if you're low in the rev range and just kind of idling along, the throttle's really choppy on this bike. So it's hard to just regulate at a certain speed. I mean, if I'm on a track or I'm on a really curvy road and I'm riding really hard, this is the bike to be on. This thing just, I mean, it sticks every curve and gives you so much confidence when you're riding. It's a lot easier to throw into curves than my 1198. And if all I did was track ride, I'd keep this bike. But I bought this one to see if I liked it better than my 98, and I just don't. So I'll be selling this one shortly. Part of the reason I've held on to it for so long is, if you can see down here on the tank, there's some damage. Up here on the windshield there's a crack, and there's a little bit of scuffing on the rear tail. And what happened was, I had taken this bike on the tail of the Dragon, and during that ride the bolt for my kickstand backed out, and my kickstand just fell off on the side of the road. My friend was riding with me. He went back and got my truck, brought the trailer, we loaded up the bike, but on my way home, one of the straps on the trailer broke, and the bike fell over on its side. So it damaged the tank, scuffed up some of the side fairings, broke the headlight bracket and the front fairing, and broke the shift lever. I had the shift lever replaced, I had the headlight bracket replaced. The fairing I'm just going to order online because they're much cheaper. And the tank, friggin' Ducati is killing me, man. I mean, I get that these bikes are expensive when they're new, but I bought this one with only a couple thousand miles on it for just under 11 grand. They want $3,000 for a new tank. And I'm not going to pay, you know, almost a third of the value of the bike to get this tank replaced. So I'm going to take it to a body shop, see if they can pull that dent out and repaint it. So now we can get into some of the technical aspects of the bike and what I do like about it, what I don't like about it. One of the main things I love about this motorcycle is the quick shifter. So if I'm on throttle, here, I'll give you a little demonstration. I'm going to keep my hand off the clutch lever. If I'm on throttle, I can just pull the shift lever up and it shifts up for me. The speed on this thing is unbelievable. I can't even imagine what the 1299 and the V4 are like, because this one's 195 horsepower and it is just downright terrifying sometimes. At full throttle, you better be holding on tight because this thing's going somewhere. Another thing I really like on this motorcycle is the full color LCD screen. You have 3 different riding modes you can put it in. I like having my gear shown over here, because sometimes if you're just street riding and you go to downshift, you kind of lose track of what gear you're in, and you don't want to try to downshift into first twice. The Rev Counter on this one's really interesting. It comes up, you can see it, it comes up from the left side here and works its way across the top. On the 1198, it's just a linear bar that goes across. But this one changes depending on the mode you're in. So now you see kind of when it gets to the top and goes across the top there, at the line, the top of the curve is 7 and the start of the straight is 8,000 RPM. But if I put it into sport mode, you'll see that the top of the curve is 6 and the start of the straight line is 7,000. Also, you notice the speedometer here in the middle. If I go back to race, the speedometer is much smaller in the lower corner and it shows me a lap time indicator right in the middle. And so you can start and stop your lap time using the high beam flasher over here on the left side. Another reason I'm a big fan of Ducati is how thin these motorcycles are. If you ride any of the 4-cylinder bikes, the inline 4s, they're transverse mounted 4-cylinders, so that means that the cylinders are lined up this way across the bike instead of straight forward. And when you do that, it means that this front fairing has to be a lot wider. Ducatis, up until the newest one, have been L twins. So you have a vertical cylinder and a cylinder that's about 90 degrees to the vertical one. And it's lined up in line with the length of the motorcycle. So that means that they can be much thinner, and for me it's a much more comfortable ride, especially trying to lean off the bike in corners. Your legs aren't already spread apart. You have a lot of room to move. Now this is something you might notice on my camera right here. If Ducatis aren't high in the rev range, they're very rough. I mean, they do not like to be down low at all. They have a lot of torque down low, but if you're below that power band, they're really shaky. You know, I say the 1198 is a better street bike than the 1199, and it is, but for pure street use, Japanese 4-cylinder bikes are worlds above this. I mean, they're smooth all the way through. You can lug it down low in the rev range. It's not shaking you to death. Another thing I think is an improvement on the 1199 compared to the 1198 is the mirrors. So they kind of look like antennae on this one, so it's a little strange looking, but the visibility is worlds above the 1198. The 1198 has its mirrors basically mounted directly on the fairing with almost no extension. So most of the time when you're looking in the mirror, you just see your elbows. So we're going to do a little pull here so you can see the shift lights. So you'll notice on the screen, the shift lights will come up from the sides and meet in the middle. And it's a really cool way to do shift lights, I think. This is something else that people talk about with cars as well. For street use, you can have so much more fun in a less powerful vehicle. It's just, for me, I think cars and motorcycles as well are the most fun when they're at their limit. And for 99.9% of people and 99.9% of circumstances, it is impossible to take this bike to its limit on the street. There's no situation where that's safe or a good idea. Even my 1198s at that point. But I feel like I can open up my 1198 all the way without having to really fight it to keep that nose wheel on the ground. But this thing just wants to come up as soon as you roll into it. The higher in the RPM range you go, the more it seems to pull. I mean, my 1198 kind of gets to a point where you feel that hard pull and you're there for the rest of the range. But this thing pulls all the way through. If you notice, the rev range is much lower than a lot of other street bikes, specifically the 4-cylinder Japanese bikes. And that's because it's a twin, so it's got a longer stroke, still a pretty high piston velocity, but it doesn't have to rev as fast. So this one rev lines between 11 and 12,000. A lot of Japanese bikes you'll see will go up to maybe 16,000. But this is just the nature of the V-twin. This is something that really divides people on these motorcycles, is the way they sound. For me, this almost sounds more like a really aggressive four-wheeler or ATV. And for some people, they don't like that. They like kind of the, not really buzzy, but that higher pitched noise of a Japanese bike. And I enjoy that as well, but I like the different noise that this makes. You know, in all my vehicles, I like to stand out. I don't like to ride or drive what everyone else drives or rides. So it's really nice to have something that sounds different and looks different, and it really stands out and people notice. For fuel, this doesn't really have a fuel gauge. It has some sensor in it that tells you when you're starting to run out of fuel, but the interesting thing is it doesn't tell you, same with the 1198, it doesn't tell you how many miles you have left until empty. it tells you how many miles you've gone since the fuel light came on. If I see that light come on, I'm just hitting the next gas station, because that's not something I really want to push, and there's no guaranteed number on how far it'll go once that light comes on. The tank is fairly small. I think it's like between 3 and 4 gallons. I'll have to double check that number, but the fuel mileage isn't too bad. It'll go a pretty decent ways with those 3 or 4. Oh, there's that. Speaking of fuel right there. So we're just going to go across the street to this Shell and get some gasoline.
Ducati. Nice bike, buddy.
Thanks, man. Alright, so hopefully you heard that guy walking by. You know, that's something that I was just talking about, is the amount of attention you get on these things. I mean, it's the Ferrari of the motorcycles for sure. Oh, hey, Mr. Horse. Very appreciative of this part of Florida being roundabout friendly. Most of the U.S. will not put in roundabouts because most American drivers are morons. So it's really nice having roundabouts over here. Okay, so if you guys don't know this, motorcyclists have this thing where if you're passing somebody else on a motorcycle on the opposite side of the road, you kind of put your hand down and to the left like this. It's just a sign of respect. This is a college town that relies mostly on scooters for transportation. Like, the scooter parking situation here is absurd because there's hundreds of scooters everywhere. And so every time I see a scooter, I mean, I see somebody with a helmet coming at me, and I see like a single light, so I know it's a motorcycle, or I think it's a motorcycle. I know it's a two-wheel vehicle, and then it's a scooter, and like I'm going to put my hand down, and they have no idea what I'm doing. They just feel ridiculous. So I know today's video is a little bit different than I've been doing. I will be getting to the drift car this week. I had to get the trailer fixed. The trailer is now repaired. Got a new coupler put on it. So we're just going to push the car into the trailer, go get it weighed. And as soon as I get that weigh-in done, we're going to start ripping stuff out and officially begin the build. Kid was super excited about the bike. That's cool. Had a real good time out riding today. I'm glad you guys got to come along. Again, if you want to see any more bike videos, just let me know. I'm sure I'll make more of them. Like I said, this is not a car only channel. I got motorcycles, dirt bikes, trucks, airplanes, everything's coming on this channel. So look forward to that. I have more project car stuff coming real soon. Gonna go get weighed in on Monday. I know Zach's on his way back from Atlanta right now with his project car. So you guys head over to Twin Line Garage. We're gonna have some good stuff coming up this summer. Gonna be in a couple different racing series. So thank you guys for watching. If you'd like to see more that's coming, hit that subscribe button down below. If you like this video, go ahead and give it a like. I'll know to make some more content like this in the future. Otherwise, you guys have a good one. That's why you ride defensively.